As we mentioned, only one Republican today voted against Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s equally contentious nomination to lead Health and Human Services is also likely to receive enough support for confirmation. This as the president circumvents Congress with a flurry of executive orders and constitutionally questionable edicts, all of which raises the question, is Congress capitulating to the executive branch? Joining us now, political consultants Carl Gentles of the Gentles Agency and Chuck Coughlin of High Ground. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. Kind of our go-to guys here on political types. Carl, we're going to start with you. That's the question. Is Congress capitulating to the executive branch?
Well, it certainly appears that way. I mean, Trump has put through a flurry of executive orders, and he is well on his way to getting his way. And the things that he said he was going to do during the campaign, he's doing them all basically by executive order right now. So the challenge that Democrats have is they really are searching for mechanisms to stop all of this, right? So, and the only mechanism they have at this point appears to be the courts, but that is dependent on where that lawsuit lands, right? In which jurisdiction, who the judge is. So that may not even be the answer for them. So it's a very tough road for Democrats at the moment.
Chuck, what happened to Congress? Where's Congress?
Ted, you know it hadn't been working for a long time. This isn't a new thing. They didn't work really well during the previous presidential administration or the previous Trump administration. It has been locked up in deeply partisan behavior ever since Obama, ever since the Affordable Care Act. They have not been able to figure out how to work in a bipartisan manner. And the simple reason for that is because none of them can win a primary without abiding by their party's leader. And Donald Trump, in this instance, is undoubtedly the Republican Party leader. Mitch McConnell's not running again, so he's a free conscience man. But everybody else, Joni Ernst, everybody else, they don't want to be primaried by a Trump Republican.
And you can imagine the conversations that are going on by the administration, Trump and his team, in Congress, right, on people that are potentially on the fence on some of his issues. I mean, all he has to do is start saying that, look, you're up for election in 2 years. We can primary you. We will put all our force behind you. And that's a big problem. I think that's what most of the congressional folks are dealing with now, especially on the Republican side, that are wanting to oppose him, but know that they've got a serious problem if they do.
And it doesn't matter how obvious that is, does it? I mean, I mean, you're seeing people, Susan Collins and these types of folks, who are expressing dismay over this, and still voting yes.
80% of the Congress is elected in a primary and have no competitive general election. The Senate is either a Republican state or a Democratic state, and with a very few exceptions. We're being one of them here in Arizona. Very few exceptions to that rule, and so that's the way. It's rigged. It's broken. The political system today is broken because we do not have competitive general elections.
Are Democrats then powerless to do anything right now? Democrats in Congress.
Well, there are some levers that they can pull, but they are very difficult at this point because the Republicans don't need any Democrats to pass anything. So really what's available to Democrats is really what can we do today that will allow us to get something we need down the road is really the art of the compromise right now and the art of I don't want to say it, but it's the art of the deal right now because you really have to think about, listen, you can either sit on the sideline for 4 years or you can work in a bipartisan, potentially compromised manner to try and get something in the future. Now, whether or not Republicans are going to go in that direction with Democrats, different story.
Are Republicans going to go in that direction?
No. Why would they do that? I mean,
You're right, they don't have to at this point.
Their best hope, the Democrats' best hope, is that Trump falls on his face, right? That this goes too far, that there is some backlash to this, that this flurry activity ends up in a blizzard of nowhere, that you're lost and you don't understand where the country's going. That Jerome Powell today said the economy is stalling. Businesses like certainty. They like certainty to plan. This environment is not great for business certainty.
Yeah, business certainty. We've talked about that all week with tariffs going on, threats of tariffs, pulling back tariffs. I mean, goodness gracious, it's the opposite of certainty.
Yeah, that is not good for business. It's not good for companies that really depend on the certainty of pricing, right? And whether it's steel or other goods that are coming into the country, or in fact the goods that we're shipping out to other countries. And so that's a major problem for the United States.
But he's got this mantra of, we all know the federal government is bloated. It's been there forever. And so it's so popular to go after it with a meat cleaver and say, this has got to stop, and expose all of these programs that are not accountable. Because Congress, again, has not been doing its job. Congress is supposed to be that oversight agency, and it has been AWOL at least since 2010.
But trying to cut government spending and downsize the size of government has been going on since I was born, and if not longer. So the question is, what's different this time, and what are they going to be able to accomplish?
Well, and let's also ask this question about how America outside the Beltway is taking all this. Is everyone just basically like, whoa, just sitting back in their chair and bracing themselves?
In the country, there's very little defenders of the bureaucracy. That just doesn't happen. And so, people are, I think, pretty enthused. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm about what he's done on the border, what he's doing on immigration, what he's doing to cut the bureaucracy.
Wow.
All of those talking points are fairly well hammered out, and we'll see.
Now,
but nobody's going to jump in front of this train right now. That's why the Democrats feel out to sea.
I don't know that people are enthused at what's going on here. I think there is a real concern around, particularly when you start shutting down government agencies in communities that really depend on those government jobs. And so what's going to happen as those agencies are drawn down, and what is the actual byproduct of all that occurring, and how's that going to materially impact people's lives on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's a lagging indicator here. That's not going to happen for a while, and when that happens, I mean, the horse has already left the barn here.
Probably, and we'll be on to the next executive order.
Right. Is any of this trickling down to state and local races here and around the country?
Well, we saw that in this last cycle. We saw that partisan behavior trickle down into mayoral elections throughout the valley.
But I mean the
Right.
executive overflow, this avalanche of activity, is this trickling down?
I think what Republicans are doing, Bob Robb wrote a Substack column about this the other day, that typically you overread an election, you ascribe too much authority to your latest victory. He's clearly doing that, and running out ahead of the train, hoping to keep it going. My guess is the midterms are going to be a very interesting time.
And I think that's the beauty here. The midterms are kind of the backstop, and typically midterms change parties each election. And so depending on what happens, and I think there's going to be such a backlash potentially that the midterms are going to be a little bit more competitive than we all thought previously. Now, the Trump team won pretty decisively, but I think the midterms are going to produce something different.
Real quickly.
But my exception to that would be, tell me what a Democrat stands for, and I'll give you my odds on how well they're
We don't have enough time to tell you what Democrats stand
All right.
for.
Right, 'cause-
We'll do
yeah,
that
you
on a
do.
different
Yeah,
session.
you do.
No, you
You just answered
How's
it.
that?
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Chuck Coughlin, Carl Gentles. Always a pleasure. Good to have you both here.
Good to have you.